Yeah, honestly, I've been working really hard to get back to full health, and I feel like probably over these last couple of weeks is when I've probably started feeling my best. Obviously, my ankle kind of.
The moment Caitlin Clark arrived in the WNBA, the entire sports world treated the Indiana Fever like a franchise that had instantly won the lottery, believing the organization had finally secured the once-in-a-generation superstar capable of transforming not only a struggling team, but the financial future of women's basketball itself. Sold-out arenas, exploding television ratings, celebrity attention, and non-stop national coverage created the illusion that everything surrounding the Fever was suddenly glamorous and unstoppable. But beneath the surface, rumors of frustration, disconnect, and internal conflict began spreading almost immediately as fans noticed visible tension on the court, emotional reactions during games, and body language that suggested the reality inside the organization was far more complicated than the polished public image being presented to the media. What was initially expected to be a smooth transition from college icon to professional superstar instead became a relentless collision between two completely different basketball philosophies, with Clark's fast-paced, instinctive, creative style repeatedly clashing against a far more traditional coaching system built around structure, slower half-court execution, and rigid control. Every nationally televised game seemed to amplify the growing debate as analysts questioned why one of the most dynamic offensive players basketball had ever seen was constantly being forced into stagnant offensive sets that neutralized the exact skills that made her a global phenomenon in the first place. Fans watched in disbelief as possession slowed to a crawl, transition opportunities disappeared, and Clark often appeared visibly frustrated after timeouts, substitutions, or broken plays that left the offense looking disconnected and predictable. The criticism intensified whenever opposing teams targeted her physically with aggressive traps, hard fouls, relentless pressure defense, and constant contact, while many viewers felt the coaching staff failed to adequately protect or empower the franchise centerpiece, carrying enormous expectations on her shoulders. The emotional weight of being the face of an entire league while simultaneously absorbing criticism, physical punishment, and endless scrutiny reportedly created a deeply exhausting environment that only increased the tension behind closed doors. Rumors of heated film sessions, uncomfortable locker room dynamics, and growing disagreements over offensive strategy turned the Fever into one of the most discussed organizations in professional sports, with insiders constantly leaking stories suggesting the relationship between Clark and team leadership had deteriorated into a battle over authority, vision, and control. Social media exploded every time Clark was taken out late in close games or appeared upset on the bench, fueling narratives that the coaching staff was attempting to discipline a generational superstar rather than adapt around her historic talent. Meanwhile, teammates reportedly found themselves trapped in an impossible position between supporting the established authority of the coaching staff and recognizing that Clark's arrival had completely changed the expectations, pressure, and visibility surrounding the franchise. Sports talk shows dissected every facial expression, every timeout, every substitution, and every post-game interview, transforming ordinary basketball disagreements into massive cultural debates about ego, leadership, player empowerment, and the future identity of the WNBA itself. Some observers argued the adversity would ultimately harden Clark into an even greater competitor capable of dominating the league for the next decade, while others warned that continued dysfunction risked damaging both team chemistry and the long-term development of the most marketable player women's basketball had ever produced. Regardless of which side people believed, the Fever quickly became the center of a non-stop media storm where every rumor, every emotional reaction, and every coaching decision involving Clark instantly generated national headlines, proving that the league had entered a completely different era where one player's presence alone could reshape the entire sports conversation. The escalating tension surrounding Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever has evolved into a massive sports media spectacle, fueled by emotion, speculation, and non-stop online debate, with fans increasingly convinced that the relationship between the franchise superstar and the organization itself has become deeply fractured behind closed doors. What began as the most celebrated draft moment in modern women's basketball history has gradually transformed into a narrative dominated by rumors of frustration, isolation, and philosophical conflict as Clark reportedly struggles to navigate the crushing pressure of carrying an entire league's popularity while simultaneously adapting to a professional environment many observers believe has failed to maximize her revolutionary offensive abilities. Throughout the season, viewers repeatedly noticed emotional reactions during games, visible frustration on the bench, tense body language during timeouts, and moments where the offense appeared completely disconnected from the fast-paced style that made Clark one of the biggest stars in sports before she ever played a professional game. Critics of the coaching staff argued that the organization attempted to force a generational playmaker into an outdated system built around slower, half-court execution and rigid structure rather than empowering the creativity, pace, and improvisational brilliance that turned her into a global phenomenon at the college level. Every nationally televised game intensified the conversation as analysts questioned late-game substitutions, stagnant offensive sets, and the lack of tactical adjustments designed to counter the aggressive defensive pressure Clark faced nightly from opposing teams determined to physically challenge the league's brightest new attraction. Fans became increasingly emotional watching hard fouls, traps, and relentless defensive schemes directed at the rookie while perceiving little public protection or visible outrage from the sidelines, creating the widespread belief that the franchise centerpiece was being left to handle the league's hostility almost entirely alone. Rumors soon spread that frustrations behind the scenes had grown far beyond ordinary rookie growing pains, with reports describing uncomfortable film sessions, disagreements over offensive philosophy, and mounting tension between Clark's camp and team leadership regarding the future direction of the franchise. According to online speculation, representatives connected to Clark allegedly became concerned that remaining trapped in a restrictive system could negatively affect not only her development as a player, but also the enormous commercial brand that now drives television ratings, merchandise sales, sponsorship attention, and national relevance for the WNBA itself. The situation reportedly escalated into conversations at the highest levels of the organization, with whispers suggesting ownership faced immense pressure to modernize the coaching philosophy, rebuild trust, and reshape the culture around the superstar whose popularity has transformed the economic landscape of women's basketball almost overnight. Fans inside arenas began openly booing coaching decisions, chanting Clark's name during critical stretches, and treating substitutions like political statements, turning ordinary basketball moments into viral national controversies dissected by sports talk shows and social media personalities every single day. Meanwhile, Clark herself has largely maintained composure publicly, offering careful, measured responses in interviews while appearing visibly exhausted by the relentless scrutiny surrounding every aspect of her career. Supporters view her restraint as evidence of maturity under impossible pressure, while critics argue the non-stop media obsession risks creating unrealistic expectations for both the player and the organization attempting to build around her. Regardless of which narrative proves closest to reality, one thing has become undeniable. The Fever are no longer simply managing a basketball team, but rather navigating one of the most powerful celebrity-athlete phenomena the sport has ever seen, where every timeout, every coaching decision, every emotional reaction, and every rumor involving Clark instantly becomes national conversation material capable of influencing the future image, popularity, and business direction of the entire league.